So at that, I'm going to go ahead and introduce Lauren Geertsen with Health Freedom for Humanity.
Congratulations on being part of the mass formation awakening. And the mass formation psychosis. I want to talk about our absolute unstoppability. And this is not a concept I could have arrived at philosophically. I had to experience this in a way that was so powerful. It is seared onto my heart and my soul. So I'm a part of the Washington chapter for Health Freedom for Humanity. Health Freedom for Humanity, which is an amazing nonprofit. It's organized around bringing together people of all different political beliefs, religious beliefs, backgrounds, under the shared value of health freedom. So no government coercion or force when it comes to what we put in our bodies. So simple. So they put on an incredible symposium in Kansas City in October, which I attended. But the dark side, the powers that be, they did everything in their power to stop this from even happening in the first place. So first of all, they deleted the founders' Instagram accounts 7+ times. Shout out to Alex Zach. And then they deleted the nonprofits' social media accounts over and over, like a big game of whack-a-mole. They blacklisted the website completely from Facebook. So you can't even publish a link to the nonprofit's website on Facebook. You can try this, or any chapter website. And still, word was getting out about the event. Word of mouth, emailed links, chatting. So they were selling tickets on Eventbrite. Eventbrite canceled their ticket sales suddenly. Yeah. And they withheld thousands of dollars in ticket sales that were needed to put on the event. Needed to pay the vendors, the speakers. So what they did was they put the word out to the community. And they said, we're in a bind. We need your help. People showed up and donated the money that was needed to continue with the event. Yeah. So it continues. We're all there, October in Kansas City at the convention center. There's 600 to 700 attendees, speakers, vendors. I have never been in a room where the frequency was so high because everyone was so open-hearted and open-minded and loving. It was incredible. So we all come the second day for the second day of the talks. Attendees, speakers, vendors. We show up at the convention centers and the doors are locked. We've been locked out without notice because we weren't wearing masks. We made it so clear to the convention center what we're all about, what we're not going to be complying with, and still, last minute, they locked us out. Here's the beautiful thing though. Nobody missed a beat. The first thing out of everyone's mouth was, how can we pivot? And how can I help? And so we moved the event to this big grassy field that was across from the convention center. People picked up cords and microphones. They carried over supplies for the vendors. People who lived in the city, they drove back home and they brought picnic blankets for us and they brought tents so we had shade. And what happened was we ended up reaching even more people that day. Yeah. Bystanders stopped by to listen. They chatted with us and they just felt our presence of love and open-heartedness. So that was an experience that showed me we truly cannot be stopped if we have the right attitude. The right attitude is whenever we meet a roadblock or an obstacle or a surprise, we say, how can I pivot? How can I help? So as much as I love seeing so many faces here, and the numbers that have showed up today. Numbers are not the most important thing for our movement of freedom and choice and integrity. The most important thing is the level of our consciousness. And what I mean by that is the degree to which we recognize and we interact only with truth and love. That means we are out of the matrix. We are not interacting with illusion. And one person, out of the matrix, has the power of 1,000 people who are plugged into the matrix. So I'm sure a lot of you have heard of Facebook's new Meta, their virtual reality world. So this is where people are going to be sitting in the corner of their micro apartment. They're going to have their virtual reality glasses on. They are going to own nothing and be happy because they're interacting with pixels and illusion and 1984 completely fact-checked false narrative. 1,000 of those people do not have the power of one of us who is unplugged from that false dimension. So here's another example from my own life. When I was 14, I was diagnosed with a life-threatening autoimmune disease. And for the next 4 years, I was told by dozens and dozens of Ivy League expert doctors 3 things. First, that the disease was incurable. Second, that I would require pharmaceutical products for the rest of my life in order to survive. And third, that nutrition wouldn't help. Yeah. When I was 18, I came across a book that outlined a dietary protocol other people had used to address the same disease. And as soon as I picked up the book, I heard the still small voice of my intuition, and it spoke so clearly to me. It was like the very bones of my body were speaking, and it said, I have to try this. And within 3 days of doing that dietary protocol, I went from almost bedridden to having no acute symptoms. Within a couple years, I was completely cured of this disease. I was 18 with a high school degree. I had more healing power than dozens of doctors who were plugged in to the matrix of the pharmaceutical model of sick care. So what we're realizing, we look at the old matrix systems, the old healthcare model for sure, health insurance, the political system, the public, yes, Rockefeller-funded medicine, public transportation, all of these systems, broken systems that are requiring we comply to some degree. They are part of the matrix. They are completely irredeemable because they were built to bring us to this ends of control and tyranny. So we don't get to fix them, we have to leave them. And it's our responsibility as awake people who are interacting with love and truth to pioneer the new systems. It can be really easy to look at the old systems, the old matrix, and tell ourselves that we need it to survive. But the truth is that the old systems need us to survive. We do not need them. It's also really easy to tell ourselves, I have no other option than to comply to some degree with the old systems, especially if our job is connected to it, our family, our structure, whatever. And I tell you, I am speaking from experience here, okay? This is not just words for me. But the thing is, whenever we tell ourselves, I have no other option than to comply, what we're really saying is I am allowing my imagination to be limited. Because when we are in the matrix, our choices are indeed limited. When I was in the medical matrix system, my healing ability was limited. It is only when we take the scary leap outside of those systems, we unleash our souls, we unleash our imagination and our creativity and our hearts, and that's when our power becomes infinite and when our choices become limitless. But what this means, unfortunately, is that we have to leave the systems before we feel ready. We're never going to feel ready to leave them. If we wait until we feel ready, until we feel financially secure enough, confident enough, and until we feel like we have the social support we need, we're going to be waiting until booster shot 378, right? We do not have that kind of time. So, here's the thing I have learned in life. This is kind of unfortunate. I don't like this. But what feeling ready actually feels like is feeling terrified and very uncomfortable. That's how we know we are, in fact, ready to make a big leap towards freedom and out of the matrix. So I'm going to circle back to this concept of one person unplugged from the matrix, having more power than 1,000 people plugged in. Well, what happens when we have 2 of us, or 4 of us, or a group like this? It's not a matter of 1 plus 1. It's not a matter of the power of 2 plus 2, but of 2 times 2. It's an exponential, synergistic effect that happens when we combine our hearts and our imaginations. I know 2 suburban moms who are in Western Washington where things are really tough. And so in summer of 2020, they were neighbors. They were sitting on one of their porches, considering the state of the world, and they were saying to each other, what are we going to do about this? How are we going to provide a bright future for our kids? And in that moment, they made a list of everything they wanted to see in an aligned community. And now, a year later, they have purchased an incredible plot of land where they live in a big house with both their families. They run a homeschool community. They are hosting skill shares. They are pioneering the new systems. They are looking for somebody who can cultivate the land so they can be completely divorced from the old food system. And that was the exponential, synergistic power of their imaginations together. So this is what we can all do. But the key here is that we have to be diligent about our thoughts and our words when we come together. Because it can be so easy to just stay stuck in exchanging the latest news headlines and scary stuff about what's happening. And we can go and use our imagination down the lane of how bad can things get? How much worse can it get? Okay? We can get distracted and discouraged by the dark side. And if that happens, whose side are we playing for? So we have to be diligent about using our imaginations and our conversations and our precious time together to entertain the question, how good can things get? And how much more beautiful can we make the world? optimist because I truly believe we are absolutely unstoppable. The awakening is unstoppable, and freedom of choice is unstoppable. I don't think I'm an optimist. I call myself a realist. I realistically refuse to underestimate the power of all of us, unplugged from the matrix, coming together, interacting only with truth and with love, with open minds and open hearts, imagining and creating together. That is unstoppable.